Welcome to Reel Time Florida Sportsman. This week we're heading to Fort Pierce looking for giant snook. It's time to find the shortest route to the hottest bite. We scan the Florida Sportsman community looking for the best fishing reports and travel to make Reel Anglers our local guides. Give me some of that! Together we let you in on secret spots and hometown moves. That's what I'm talking about!
Oh yeah, she's done for now.
This week we're doing something a little different. We're heading up to Fort Pierce with Mike Aletto. We're dragging the bottom with jigs for big snook.
There's one.
Got him?
Yep, that's one. That's a good one.
Oh
yeah,
my
that's a good
God.
One.
Oh my
yeah.
God.
There's the ones we're looking for tonight.
Look at the mouth on that thing. All coming up on Reel Time Florida Sportsman. So it's a little tough. We're sitting here in January. Cold fronts are just, washing down the state, one after the other, blowing out completely around the state. Winds are blowing west, 25 to 30. And there's just not a lot of options on where to fish this time of the year. Looking for something to do, knowing how bad the weather was, I got the call. I got the call from Mike Aletto. He said, listen, this time of the year, it really kicks these snook off. The turn basin, Fort Pierce bridges are going off. Get up here and let's try this, to throw some jigs and see if we can land some big snook. And I thought, you know what? Let's do it. Let's get the Triton, let's head up there and see what it's got. All right, Fort Pierce Inlet, the turn basin, notorious turn basin. Mike Aletto, what do you got planned for us?
Well, I think what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and fish the bridges tonight. Go around on the end of the tide, see if we can use some jigs, see if we can't pull out a few snook.
So, truth be known, we're sitting here at the end of January, early February, and the state is pretty much blown out. I mean, the weather is gale force winds practically blowing hard out of the west. Front just came through, and honestly, there's not many options of places to fish in the state of Florida right now. But with these cold temperatures dropping, this turns them on, right?
Oh yeah. When the water gets cold, they like to congregate in these deeper channels, and hopefully we can get on a good bite tonight.
There's not a lot of variety here. The only variety we have is color. The 2-ounce First Light jigs, flare jigs.
Oh yeah.
Bouncing the bottom.
Chartreuse and white. That's basically what we're going to use tonight.
So our plan was to get on the water a little early while it was still light out, kind of get a picture of the area that we were going to be fishing. We're going to head over, grab a bite to eat, and just wait for the tide to change. And that's side vision. That's the fish that we're going to be targeting, sitting right outside the fenders there. You can see them down there on the bottom, just lined up.
See how they sit right away from it?
Yeah, they're away from. You said they would be away from it. They are.
Told
They're out
you.
front of it.
They sit right out of it.
And all these little white specks are all fish. You can see the shadow on them. So Fort Pierce is kind of a little older town. Nice little renewed downtown district near the boat ramp. Really known for its inshore fishing. It's got a great snook fishery, and that's what brought us up here. They've got some good restaurants. We headed over to the Tiki Bar over by City Marina, parked the Triton, got out, got a nice dinner, and just we're really excited for the night to come. So we get out on the water. Now it's dark. Mike has some certain spots that work for him. These fish are really tidal dependent. They stage in different areas on different tides. If he spent a lot of time up here, he really knows the areas to hit. So we decided, let's concentrate around the bridges first and see if the bite's happening. All right, first spot, gonna hit the bridge around these fenders. Tide's still falling, so get down current, throw up current, right?
Oh yeah. Just drift the backside of the tide.
All right.
And we're gonna see if we can't pull a fish out here.
Well, it's getting cold, the winds are blowing.
This is the time to do it.
Hopefully the fish are chewing. Throwing a 2-ounce jig for a snook is not probably what a lot of people think of when they think of snook fishing, but this is a really effective way to fish for these big snook in deep water. You need a heavy enough bait that's going to get down to the bottom, and these 2-ounce flare hawk jigs are just the perfect thing to do it. Kind of throwing some big heavy tackle, longer rods, pulling out the 8-foot rods, the 6,000 size reels, and beefing the tackle up. But the important thing is to know that these fish are down on the bottom on these cold winter nights, and you got to get your bait down there. Flare hawk, the infamous flare hawk. Everybody asks about it. It's not, it's pretty simple fishing. People make more of it than it is. It's just, I don't even know, what do they think this is? They think this is a shrimp?
No one really knows. There hasn't actually been a solid.
So nobody really knows why they're eating it.
I think a lot of times it's just reaction.
And you're just cranking it across the bottom.
This segment is brought to you by Triton Boats by Earl Bentz. We take America fishing.
Yeah, see, we're sitting up here in the northern end of the Treasure Coast. The whole area is filled with these snook. You know, we're both from Stewart area and come up here to Fort Pierce, but you know, all the way down to Palm Beaches, up to Sebastian. The snook fishing on the East Coast, East Central region, and the southeast section of the Florida Sportsman Forum is probably the best in the whole state. The West Coast has got a great snook fishery, don't get me wrong, but as far as size of the fish, the East Coast are incredible. So is this real tide dependent?
Absolutely. You know, the fish tend to feed on the backside of the tide, you know, the last hour, last 2 hours of it, and then other nights they're on the first 2 hours of it. So very, very tide dependent. It just depends on what time of the tide they're wanting to feed.
And it can turn on and shut off.
Oh yeah, and when it turns on, it's usually a 45-minute window. Primarily, beginning of the tide is usually, you know, my favorite. You know, the beginning of the tide is...
Either way, incoming or outgoing, the beginning of that movement of water?
Yeah, it's usually the beginning. Sometimes it can be, you know, the last hour, you know, which is what we're gonna try right now before we start the beginning of the next tide.
So we're sitting on the end of the outgoing right now?
Yeah, we're sitting on the end of the tide right now.
The bite started out a little tough. You know, we have some tough conditions, and these nights when you think that the fishing is not gonna be good, this is the kind of condition that these guys look for though. We're dealing with the northwest wind that's blowing, you know, 25 gusts to 30. Temperatures are cold, they're predicted to be in the high 40s this night. You know, and the bite started out a little slow, but talking to Mike, he was more confident with the bite for the incoming tide.
Taking down the
Drag a little bit.
Yeah, a little fish, nothing big.
Using some tackle, you pull that thing out of there.
Yeah, just a short little fish.
Ooh, not a bad one.
Ooh, just
there
threw
he
the
went.
jig.
All right, well, maybe they're starting to chew.
See if we can't get another one.
Where'd that one eat?
Right there on the corner of the fender.
It took a little bit, but Mike finally got that first bite. It was positioned right where he said it was gonna be. It was good to see that the fish were chewing tonight. It's a wintertime bite or summertime? Or
Mainly in the winter.
mainly in winter, they push these deep holes.
Oh yeah. When the water starts cooling down, they all start grouping up and they'll sit out here in the channel. They just group up on ledges. It's a different fishery up here.
A
That's
real
for sure.
deep body of water here in Fort Pierce Inlet. Most people don't realize it's probably one of the deepest inlets around. You know, 50, 60-foot holes, and you probably just come here, sit here in the wintertime and stay nice and warm on the bottom.
Oh yeah, and those deeper pockets of water.
And the wind's really falling out. It was blowing practically 30 when we got here. It's right at the end of the outgoing. We're kind of sitting here waiting for the tide to change. Still creeping across the bottom. The tide pretty much stopped. We started to move around a little bit with the trolling motor. I positioned on the other side in anticipation of the tide changing. And really the tide was pretty much slack at this point. I threw the flare hawk in there, just kind of bouncing the bottom. And I got hit once, missed them, threw back in there the next cast, and when you know, I'm finally hooked up. God, he thumped that thing. Not a bad one. Probably a keeper fish in a couple days. It's the second one that spot. About 3 casts ago, I lost one. Nice snook. Grab him for me. Oh, green. There it is. That's what we're looking for. Look how clean that fish is.
Beautiful
These
fish.
Fort Pierce fish are so light. Unlike the ones I get by me that are dark, this thing is so light. You can see that clear ocean water. Look at that jig.
Oh, he wanted it.
God, thumped it. 2 casts ago, I got bit, lost them. 2-ounce jig, creeping it across the bottom. Just the very beginning of the incoming tide. We've been sitting here for a couple hours, really struggling on the outgoing tide. Just changed. Boom.
Beautiful fish.
Woo! That's what we came for.
Alrighty, man.
Man, I think there's more in
Nice
there.
fish.
Let's get some more.
This segment is brought to you by Eagle Claw Trocar, the sharpest fish hooks in the world.
In today's seminar, I'm going to talk to you about different rod lengths and when to choose which rod. Things are pretty much going to vary between a 6 and an 8-foot rod, mainly is what we're using. 6-foot rod, a short rod, something like this, a jigging rod. It's the perfect application. You don't need a long rod when you're jigging. You're going to see shorter spinning rods also in heavy structure areas. You're fishing, docks, bridge piling, something where you don't need to make a long cast, short rod. Probably a general multi-purpose rod that you're going to use a lot is a 7/6. This is a great rod for live baiting, also for throwing artificials. You can get a good long cast. And on this episode, we use the 8-foot rod. And talking to Mike, he was really adamant about getting his hands on the 8-foot rod. And the purpose for this is a nice long cast. We're throwing 2-ounce jigs all night long. An 8-foot rod is going to afford you the ability to make those nice long casts. Also, this is a heavier rod. It's got a lot of backbone. It's a 30 to 50 pound class, so you can really stop those big snooks. It's really important here to have good boat position. So we use the Motor Guide anchor feature, got the boat in the perfect position. The idea here was to throw somewhat cross current, maybe a little bit up current, give the jig time to get down to the bottom. And all we were doing was bringing it from deeper water up into shallower water.
Tide change, we're gonna come out here, we're gonna drift right into the channel here. We're gonna throw in the ledge. We're gonna use 2-ounce jigs and try to get into the ledge and see if we can pull a fish off.
Now, how do you fish? Everybody fishes them different.
I like to creep it on the bottom and just do it a subtle little bounce.
So
just kind of bounce it right off the bottom, skip it right off the bottom.
So we're throwing it out there and actually just wait a second and you're gonna actually feel it hit the bottom. Some people slow roll it across the bottom, other people do a little jigging action. The big thing is to be on the bottom. And that's really what this braid's so nice. Probably really help with jig fishing. No stretch.
There's one.
Got him?
Yep, that's one. That's a good one.
Good job.
That's gonna be a good one.
That didn't take you long, brother.
Oh yeah, that's
my
a good
God.
one.
Oh
Oh
my
yeah.
God.
There's the ones we're looking for tonight. It's definitely a better fish.
Whew.
All right, George, that's what we're looking for.
Oh, my goodness. Look at the mouth on that thing.
It's a beautiful 4-piece snook.
I can barely lift that thing. Look at that. That is why you come up 4 Pierce and catch a snookosaurus right there.
Oh yeah.
That is a giant, beautiful, clean. Literally pulled in the spot. It was like your first or second cast.
Second cast.
Look at that thing. That's probably a 40-inch fish. Giant belly on her. Just inhaled that first light jig. Bounced it on the bottom. Woo-hoo.
That was the hit I was looking for.
God, dude, that is a giant. Look how fat that fish is. I mean, just look at the, compared to my hand, look how big that thing is.
That's what we were looking for, George.
Man, look at that line sider. That is a slob. How we let her get back in the water? It's a big breeder here.
Let her fight another day.
Oh.
That's what it's all about, George.
Good job, bro.
That's what we're here for.
Wow, I want one now. This is what 4 Pierce is known for. This is what they call a 4 Pierce schoolie. This thing is big.
This segment brought to you by Wiley X, absolute premium protection.
You know, when you're fishing this kind of heavy jigs, this is not for light tackle. This is, you know, we're using 8-foot rods, so you can get a nice long cast. We've got the 6,000 Battle 2s. This is, you know, 50-pound spider wire, and we're using an 80-pound piece of fluorocarbon leader. And that's what you really need when you're throwing 2 ounces of jigs, you know, all night long. There's a lot of structure around here. You got to be able to slow these fish down. You're just bouncing that? I feel it kind of hitting the bottom and just popping it up, or are you just kind of skipping across?
I'm just kind of just bouncing right off the bottom, just feeling where I'm at on the bottom and just bouncing it, you know.
Okay, so that you just want that thing kind of falling down.
Yeah, just skipping. You can it kind of helps you to where you can feel, you know, where you're at in the water column.
Yeah.
And he was just laying right there on the bottom. He made one bounce and he thumped it.
Come on, one more big fish.
They're in here.
You know that girl ain't by herself.
Oh, no. No.
So how long have you been fishing this area for?
I've been fishing this area about 8 years. Been fishing the local waters in Stewart where I live for about 10. You know, grew up riding my bike as a kid, fishing the bridges. That's what I love to do. This is my favorite time of the year to fish. Doesn't get much better than this.
This is pretty good. Middle of the winter. There's snow in a lot of parts of the country, and we're out snook fishing. You get these little tidal windows, these times, maybe a 30-minute period where these fish just have a tendency to feed, and I think we've just timed it just perfectly. You know, we're in the right area, we're getting the jigs in the right spot, and I'm starting to get the bites. Oh, I just got thumped back there again. Hit it once, and I thought, no, that can't be a fish. Oh.
Go ahead and get out of your way here.
They're on that backside there. That's the second time. They just thought, I mean, there's fish sitting right back there. Oh, man, I think I slid off anchor. That was a bad idea. Oh. That felt like a good fish that I lost, but unfortunately doing this type of fishing, you're gonna lose a couple fish. A 2-ounce jig is a lot of weight. That snook comes up, starts shaking his head, and sometimes I just throw the jigs. Another thing is we're using braided line, heavy braided line, 0 stretch. Unfortunately, that's what you need in these heavy structure areas, but it's not forgiving. I tell you what though, when they come up and hammer that jig, using that braided line, you surely do feel it. I came to Fort Pierce for a big snook. I know they're here. Mike's caught one. I want to get mine. I know it's just a matter of time though. You put enough casts in, you're gonna get bit. Ooh, let me get out of the way. Jump? What the heck jumps?
There's been little tarpon in here.
I don't know what it is. I don't know, it's weird. And it jumped way out there, so I don't think it's anything worth a darn. I don't know if they're splashing on the surface though. It's so hard at night. I don't think it's a snook. Mike said there had been some tarpon in the area, and I thought to myself, there's no way that snook came off the bottom, 20 feet of water and jumped and did a cartwheel. I tell you what, get the fish close to the boat, and I can't believe it, it's a big snook. That is so weird how that fish fought. Whoa. Oh, George. That thing was 35 yards out there and it jumped out of the water. Look at the size of that fish to jump out of the water. Oh my gosh. Look how clean and fat that fish is.
There you go, George, that's yours.
Woo! That's the one I've been looking for all evening.
Beautiful fish.
That 2-ounce jig was just floating down. I felt it just going along the bottom and he just, boom, dumped it. That's it, man. I saw your pictures. You weren't lying, you were been on them. That's why we came up here. End of January, cold front just came through, you know, practically gale force winds, and we found a bite. Probably one of the worst nights, and they chew. This is what these fish wait for. These are the nights that they love to feed in Fort Pierce. Let's get this
Beautiful fish, George.
I can't even get her like that. Put a head on her. Ooh, she's biting on my thumb. There she goes. Down she went. Woo-hoo-hoo.
All right.
Awesome, bro. Wow. Wow is all I can say. On the worst weather week of the year, pretty much weathered out, no opportunities to go anywhere in the state, Mike Aletto reached out to me through the Florida Sportsman community and said he could get the job done. He brought me up to Fort Pierce and put me on some monster snook. It won't be my last trip up there. Getting crazy, round the camera boat. Hop in. You want to come to Fort Pierce and catch some spotted eagle rays? This is the guy to put you on them. I can't see anything, there's lights in my face.